worship pastors, and that we have more to sift through, to sort through. Like my brother was just sharing, there are a lot of songs out there that are great in testimony, but they neglect in talking about the absolute objective truths of God, and they're more about how we feel towards God. And don't get me wrong, there's a place for there to be songs about testimony. But may I suggest to you today that we err more on having songs about how we feel towards God than we do having songs that just objectively proclaim the truth of God. And let me tell you something, music and our dispositions doesn't change lives, it's the truth of God that changes lives. So when we're going to sing, I think it needs to be blended, but I find a real power in singing about who God is in the middle of my pain, in the middle of my circumstance. There's power in praise, and God resides in those praises. And as worship leaders, we need to be thinking about our song selection. We need to make sure that Jesus Christ is central, because there are songs out there where, like my brother was saying, has more to do with how we feel towards God than it does about God objectively. And just know that that is something that is not going to go away. We need to have indicators on. We need to be thinking about what we're singing. We're going to be talking shortly about the role of a worship leader as a theologian and the need that we have to think through songs as we teach theology through our music. What do you guys think it means about? What do you think it means to have Christ central in regards to how we appear on the platform? That's a great answer. What's your name? Jenna was just sharing how, not to be dressing or conduct yourself in a way that would draw attention to you. But, be reasonable. Of course, modesty is just a given. But on top of that, be careful of what you wear. I was part of a church one time where one of the guidelines was don't wear, T-shirts on the platform that are plastered with, the names of a company or something like that. And some people look at that and say that's legalistic. Well, I look at that and say, well, that's an easy sacrifice to make because, why do companies plaster the names all over T-shirts? Because it has an effect. People get attracted to it, and they're obviously influenced by it. So I can see the value in that. Christ needs to be central in all aspects of our service. I would go as far to say this. If there's an aspect of our service that doesn't in some way draw attention to the glory of Jesus Christ, then why is it a part of our service? And I know, being a student here as well, and experiencing church life here, both on campus and around campus and at other churches, and even back home in Canada, there are sometimes situations where we're exposed to the things that you're just thinking to yourself, what does this have to do with Jesus Christ? It sometimes feels like a dog and pony show. We're talking about something else when we really need to be talking about Jesus Christ. As you guys go into churches, it will be your responsibility to keep the main thing the main thing. And let me encourage you to make that thing Jesus Christ. He needs to be central in our services. The purpose of the church isn't to gather around to talk about Aunt Bessie and the garage sale that she had last Saturday. The purpose of the church is to gather and to fellowship and community, but at some point, be in corporate exaltation of Jesus Christ. And he needs to be the central figurehead when that happens. Let's move on to the next slide. Worshiping churches are Holy Spirit empowered. When we enter into corporate worship, we are believing in God for a transformational encounter. Do you believe that? Do you believe that lives are transformed and challenged and changed and convicted when we enter into worship? We are 100% dependent on the Holy Spirit to change, challenge, and convict lives. Truth and the power of the Holy Spirit changes people, not musical notes. This is important, guys. This is really key. I cannot play any note on that piano over there that's going to send the legions fleeing to the altar ready to accept Jesus Christ. I can't do it, you can't do it. You know why? It's because there's nothing inherent to music in and of itself that changes lives. Truth is what changes lives. The power of the Holy Spirit is God's truth that changes lives. Now look up here for a second. Everybody look up here. I want to suggest to you something. When it comes to music, when it comes to songs, I don't want to downplay the need for a good melody to marry with great lyrics. But I do want to say something. At the end of the day, if I had to make a decision, it isn't my conviction, and I challenge it to be yours as well. Lyrics matter more. Why? It's because truth changes lives. Now listen, lyrics are served by melody, And there's a lot of great hymns that we don't sing anymore that are great truths that never really seen the light of day because the melodies were not so great. And that's a challenge to you songwriters here today, to find those great hymn texts and set them to maybe more contemporary, tangible melodies. I don't want to downplay the role that melody plays in serving the text, but I will at the end of the day tell you that if I had to choose, lyrics always matter more. Now let that influence you while you choose songs, based on the conviction that I believe is clear in Scripture, that it is truth. The truth of those lyrics is what changes people's lives. It's not a melody. Melody can serve it and deliver it and do a great job at facilitating a spot for it to exist. But let me tell you guys, there are a lot of worship songs that are capitalizing, that are being written today, that are capitalizing mostly on a hooky melody, but substantively are really shallow. You need to have your indicators on. You need to have those red flags going up. You need to be filtering through what music you are using. You need to make sure that Christ is central in them. You need to know that it is the truth of the song that changes and challenges lives. It's not a musical note. The Holy Spirit is the worship leader. Philippians 3:3 talks about how we worship through the Holy Spirit. He is the worship leader. Here's the one that is prompting us, that is giving us direction, that we ought to be looking to as we plan our sets, as we prepare throughout the week. Let's move to the next slide. Worshiping churches are clear in theology and teaching. Worshiping churches are clear in theology and teaching. Who can give me a great definition of the word theology? Somebody pipe up. What does the word theology mean? The study of God. Very well put. As worship leaders, you maybe not regarded yourself as a theologian. That's a big kind of biblical word, but you are. In layman's terms, you are a Bible teacher by virtue of the songs that you select and the worship that you lead. You are teaching doctrine of God. You better have an understanding, first of all, about what it is that you're teaching. How many people are analytical thinkers? There'll be lots of times when I find myself in a worship set, and to my discredit, I'll find myself spending a lot of time looking at the lyrics, and I'll be like, wow, that's an Arminian thought, or wow, that's a Calvinistic thought. And it's not a right or wrong thing, but songs teach theology. I don't know if you've noticed that before, but songs teach a theology about God. You will notice that have you guys learned a little bit about the hymn writers? Who's the father of all hymns? He wrote Joy to the World. Who wrote Joy to the World? Does anybody know? He helped with the invention of the light bulb. Got it. Isaac Watts. Isaac Watts is known as the father of all hymnody, at least in regards to Great Britain. And you'll notice that in a lot of Isaac Watts' music, there's a real strong, staunch Calvinistic, presence in his when it comes to the doctrines of Calvinistic teaching. You can see them evident in Isaac Watts. Whereas his contemporaries and later the people that existed after him, the Wesleyan brothers that really were part of the great revival in Britain, were more Arminian in their songs. And it's good to be able to identify these things because our songs teach theology. So we better make sure that we're choosing songs, first of all, when we're involved in a church that are lining up with the theology that the denomination or that the pastor ascribes to. We better make sure it's sound. We better make sure that we can testify and have an answer if somebody were to come up to us and say, what's with that kind of bogus lyric? What does that mean? Did one of the groups sing Come Thou Fount of Every Blessing? Wasn't that one of the groups today? Who was in that group? You guys did a great job of this. You taught theology by explaining, Here I Raise My Ebenezer, that reference to 1 Samuel. That is a common example of an average person. When do we use that language today? Like, we just don't do that. Now listen, should we not sing that verse? No. Like, we're not raising delinquents in the church. We need to explain. And you guys did a wonderful job of that today. And sometimes you may wonder about what you can do to introduce a song like that. Well, you can introduce Come Thou Fount. Log this away in your mind. Next time I read Come Thou Fount, I'm going to explain what that second verse means because I realize that it's a language that we don't often use. But again, it's teaching a theology, it's teaching a biblical concept, and it ties into it. It can be a great source of affirmation. Another song that I often like to teach about before I lead is Days of Elijah. How many people know that song? One of the few songs in contemporary worship repertoire that is written in the prophetic meaning that it talks about things that have not happened in anticipation for them to happen. A lot of people get bent out of shape. They're like, I don't like that song because it talks about